The Lebombo mountain range stretches roughly 800 kilometers throughout southern Africa, separating Swaziland and South Africa from Mozambique. And due to the South African government's lack of commitment to border security, in many places, these mountains are the only barrier left in the way of cross-border criminals entering and exiting South Africa and Mozambique. The border between South Africa and Mozambique has been a place of conflict for many years. During the reign of the National Party government, insurgents often crossed this border into South Africa. This led the then government to erect a deadly electrified fence that often took the lives of refugees fleeing the civil war in Mozambique. In 1990, the electric fence was switched off, an act welcomed by human rights activists, but an act that created a new challenge: a surge in illegal immigration and cross-border crime. Towns close to the border were hit the hardest, with a surge in vehicle theft, armed robberies, poaching and smuggling, and the wave of illegal immigration quickly became noticed all over the country. The town of Hoedspruit in Limpopo is separated from the Mozambican border by the Kruger National Park. But this did not prevent the town from feeling the effects of cross-border crime, and residents of this small tourism hub have been forced to tackle crime themselves. A private camera network has been established throughout the town as well as on farm roads in the area, allowing civilian safety structures to respond to crimes immediately. A project entirely funded and operated by volunteers.
Okay, what I do is to watch the cameras to see what's happening in town at a specific time. We have different routines, like maybe from 8 to 10, so we actually look at what's happening in Hoedspruit. We have different, if maybe it's just suspecting, we have a security company in town whom we first contact to ask them to go and have a look. If it's an accident, we immediately contact FarmWatch and they take over contacting the relevant people. So I just watch the camera, tell them what I see, and then they take it from there. Yes, it is making a huge difference because we cannot run away from the fact that the police force is overwhelmed. They are dealing with a lot of issues. So when we take over as a community to make sure that our community is safe, including them, it makes our community safer.
Neighborhood Watch members also have a very close working relationship with local law enforcement, creating the opportunity to combine forces. Roadblocks and other operations are frequently conducted in collaboration.
Yeah, the aim of the roadblock is, as always the case, we as traffic officers check the fitness of the drivers as well as that of motor vehicles. And of course, we are peace officers. We don't ignore these other criminal activities that we see. You know, Hoedspruit is an area which is having a high volume of foreign nationals, the tourists and so on. So we're just keeping an eye on everything that may be problematic to the citizens. But unfortunately, Hoedspruit is one town that will never pass with a stolen vehicle. We have got a very good cooperation or collaboration with the town watch here. They've got resources to actually trace such. Of course, not undermining the capacity of us as the state or peace officers and that of SAPS.
It has been estimated that 30% of vehicles stolen in South Africa get smuggled across the country's porous borders and resold in neighbouring countries. Vehicles stolen in South Africa have reportedly also been found in the possession of terror groups in the Middle East. While conducting this roadblock, we get the news that a colleague's vehicle has been stolen in Johannesburg and it might be heading our way.
Hallo Jacques,
Hey Ernst, hoe gaan dit?
goed ben jy?
Ja, lekker man. Hoor jy so, yes, jammer om te hoor van jou kar.
Ja, dankie. Dit is maar 'n mors, maar dit is seker net maar deel van die omstandighede in hierdie land waarna mens maar moet gewoond raak.
Hoor jy gee gou so vinnig van agtergrond, hoe laat is hy gisteraand gesteel en waar min of meer, wat het gebeur?
Ja, so ons is gisterand in Rodepoort gewees vir 'n funksie. Ek het 6 uur se kant parkeer. So hy's tussen 7 uur en 8 uur gisteraand gesteel, maar dit was tussen 'n klomp mense. So en daar was 'n karwag en alles, maar klaarblyklik is daai tipe materiaal nie genoeg nie.
Okay, so dis in die Johannesburg omgewing iewerste. So die kans is goed dat daai kar is dalk klaar in 'n chop shop daar iewerste. Of hy is dalk moontlik op pad na een van die grensposte toe. Ek sê wat ons gaan doen, ons gaan al die plaaslike ouens hierso, die veiligheidsstrukture hier opdrag gee om op die uitkyk te wees, ons sal die besonderhede deurstuur. En dalk raak ons gelukkig en ons kry elkaar dalk voor oor die grens gaan.
Ja, dankie. Ek het juist gehoor die goed is, kyk, Fortuners oor die algemeen is mos maar 'n teiken, maar ek verstaan dat dit juist gewild is om die karre oor die grens te vat. En so ek is juist bekommerd daaroor.
Okay, dis reg nie, ons hou oogie en ons sit die woord uit. Thanks wat, praat weer.
Mooi bly.
Bye.
Goed, bye.
The local civilian safety structures are very well organized in this area all along the border. And they've got patrollers and they've got camera systems who are constantly on the lookout for stolen vehicles coming from Gauteng and other parts of the country heading straight towards the Mozambican border where they get shopped across. So we're going to put out the word, send out the details of this vehicle, and hopefully we'll get lucky. The description of the vehicle is circulated to all the neighbourhood watchers on this smuggling highway, and within hours, a vehicle matching the description is tracked down. It's not the car we are looking for, but the precision and speed it has been stripped down with is a clear indication of just how professional these criminals are. Vehicles that are not smuggled out of the country are stripped down for parts, which are also smuggled cross-border. Often the vehicles and parts are later smuggled back to South Africa and resold. We head south towards the N4 National Freeway that leads straight to Mozambique, and it's not long before we get a heads up about a hijacked vehicle heading in our direction. So we're currently on one of these smuggling routes that is often used by motor vehicle thieves to quickly get vehicles across the border from South Africa into Mozambique. And so far we've run into one military patrol, but apart from that it seems pretty quiet. But the roads are really terrible, and often these criminals write off these vehicles in the process of trying to get them across the border in haste. We are right on the Mozambican border, and the smugglers' paths become undrivable. Car thieves often write off the stolen vehicles while dashing for the border on these roads, so we continue on foot. It's dangerous work. South African soldiers have been known to open fire on stolen vehicles, as well as private security officers pursuing those vehicles without warning. And with no clear indication of where the borderline actually is, one also runs the risk of accidentally crossing into Mozambique. So, this is literally the borderline between South Africa and Mozambique, roughly 70 kilometers from the Lebombo border post at Kwazulu-Natal. There's nothing left of the fence that used to be, and this whole area is full of smugglers' paths. And these are the vehicles that the guys used to come in and out of South Africa, the pathways, and also the way they smuggle vehicles across the border. We can hear voices around us. We're not sure who they are, where exactly they are, so we're playing it very careful at this stage. But as you can see, absolutely no border control whatsoever. In this area, you cannot be sure who is friend or foe. In 2019, a shootout between South African soldiers and Mozambican border police left 2 Mozambican officers dead. The cause of the firefight is still unclear. The remnants of the once electrified border fence brings home the reality of how bad the situation is. Anyone or anything can come and go as they please. So obviously someone here has tried to block off this path going into Mozambique. Could be to prevent cattle from being stolen and taken through here. Could be people, could be anything. We've spoken to some of the locals and they're absolutely fed up with the situation here. One guy was telling us that just recently his best friend was murdered a few hundred meters from here. So people are trying to make plans, but clearly it's not working. There is no sign of the vehicle we are looking for, but with the ample choice of smugglers' roads to choose from and no border fence, it's a near impossible task to stop these criminals from escaping across the border, where these downtrodden paths lead straight to the main roads that lead directly to Mozambique's capital, Maputo. The consequences of non-existent border security is not limited to vehicle theft. Farmers and game reserves are under constant attack by criminals and poachers. Residents in rural areas close to the border have also had to organize themselves to protect their own.
I think in this day and age with our current government structures that are lacking at best, to put it, we need to start playing an active role and get involved. It also builds community, and then if you've got community, you've got strength. Because if you've got your community like Hoedspruit, which isn't very big, and you can keep that under control, the likeliness of farm attacks, etc. is very heavily brought down.
In these vast wilderness areas, tracking down criminals can be very challenging. Sniffer dogs have been employed with great effect in these farm areas and these border areas to firstly catch up with poachers and smugglers, and secondly as a deterrent, because these smugglers know which areas use dogs and they try and avoid those areas, and that obviously has a very big impact on local security. So what we're going to do now is see if I can evade 2 of these sniffer dogs. But the dogs can also be deployed by helicopter, drastically cutting down my escape time. One of the local reaction teams, made up of volunteers, are also deployed to back up the dogs and their handler. Even though I'm hiding up a tree, the dog tracks me down in minutes. Depart from Mpumalanga and head for Kwazulu-Natal, where the northern part of the province cuts around the Kruger National Park and borders Mozambique directly. The area has been plagued by cross-border crime for years. In 2018, the community in Manguzi erupted in protest, demanding action from the South African Police Service. A plan was made to install concrete barriers along this part of the border, but smugglers soon started building vehicle ramps to navigate this problem. To worsen the matter, The contract to manufacture the barriers was halted due to a corruption investigation, and the manufacturing sites are now gathering dust. After that, it was business as usual for the vehicle syndicates. According to security officials tasked with tracking down stolen vehicles, gangs from Mozambique have now added kidnapping to their modus operandi.
The first scenario is we call them the long-distance vehicles. These are vehicles that are taken in Johannesburg, Gauteng area, Durban area, places like that. They compromise the tracking units in those areas, and they bring the vehicles down to this area to take them through the border fence. Now, the second scenario we've got is the locally hijacked vehicles. Now, these are gangs that operate from Mozambique. They come across the borderline, they identify a vehicle in the local catchment area, and they will then hijack that vehicle, probably take the owner and whoever's with him hostage. They will hold those people hostage until that vehicle is either over the border or very close to the border. Then they will release those people.
What's the point of taking the hostages?
They take the hostages with so they cannot put out any form of alert to alert the police, SANDF, tracking companies, etc. that vehicle has been taken. So it gives them the benefit of time. Time is very precious this close to the border. At the moment we're only a couple of kilometers from the border. So anything hijacked in this area or close to this area, time is of the essence to get the response in place to recover that vehicle and rescue the hostages unharmed.
And how violent are these guys?
The long distance guys tend to be a single individual on his own who's normally unarmed and not violent. The local guys are dangerous. They are heavily armed. There are a lot of them. The average home invasion hijacking scenario, there's between 8 and 12 of them. AK-47s have been witnessed, and we have recovered a few, as well as handguns. Those guys are dangerous. They have killed people for their vehicle. We need to get rid of those oaks.
We head towards the tourist town of Shishluwe. This little town is not only a hub for tourists, but also for smugglers and other criminals, and the local AfriForum neighborhood watch has their hands full.
Because of all the small towns next to the main road going to Mozambique, there's definitely bigger networks in the South African side of the area. So the networks are big. Some of the big businessmen, they are involved in it. The syndicates is being run from the South African side of the border. So no, it's very big. Stolen vehicles, it's massive. There's a lot of stolen vehicles on a daily basis passing through, going through the border. Some of them over the fence, some of them through the border post itself, where there's some corrupt officials involved. With cloned vehicles, it's big. Drugs, there's lots of drugs coming through. Cocaine, pure heroin coming through the border post. It's being smuggled through with trucks. We recovered a lot of vehicles in trucks that's being smuggled through. So I will say the vehicles and the drugs. Counterfeit goods is very big. There's a lot of counterfeit goods, fake shoes, clothing, stuff like that. Massive on a daily basis coming through the area. There's a saying that goes around, this is Zululand and not Disneyland. So here we can get any crimes. It's from illegal immigrants, dacha, drugs. And I think if the police actually wants to, they can target the private sector to assist them. There's all the tools and everything that is out there we can use. We just need to get the right police members involved.
We'd barely just arrived when the first call came through. The AfriForum Neighborhood Watch has received information about a stolen vehicle that has crossed back into South Africa and is heading in our direction.
Ons wag nou vir Perons om te ontmoet. Daar's blykbaar gesteelde voertuig op pad met die persoon binne. Ons gaan gou vinnig dan 'n plan maak hoe ons gaan optree en wie gaan optree. So kom ons wag net gou vinnig vir sy inligting wat ons gaan kry en dan besluit ons van daar af.
Okay. Julle is okay. The bulletproof's on. So we know of one confirmed vehicle that is heading this direction. The vehicle is suspectedly followed by 2 other vehicles who are also involved. So we're not quite sure about the number of suspects, but we're just positioning vehicles now in case we do need to take cover, in case these guys are armed and things go south. The SAPS has also just joined us on scene, and now we're waiting. The convoy is stopped and the vehicles searched. Some of the occupants are armed. Their firearm licenses check out, but the same cannot be said about the lead vehicle's license disc.
But you don't explain. The vehicle has got a case. A case that was stolen in 2021. Bring me the circulation report. The same vehicle. This is the vehicle. Let me let you know. No, that's fine. The vehicle sought is Maiden Wolf. It's Maiden Wolf. The same. This BMW is white. And the case number for that is Maiden Wolf SAPS has. Which means this is a case registered under the SAPS Maiden Wolf. Where in Maiden Wolf? What's Maiden Wolf? This is the Maiden Wolf. Right. Where's Maiden Wolf? This vehicle belongs to. Let me check if it's a Mr. or a Miss. This vehicle belongs to Mr. Initials T of 36. Yes. That's not honest. Where's Maiden Wolf? I don't know. I'm trying to check.
So this gentleman is apparently a pastor. He says he's in South Africa on a missionary mission, but the pastor is driving a stolen vehicle. He claims it belongs to the church, whichever way. It's registered as stolen in 2021. The driver of the vehicle is taken into custody. It is not uncommon for stolen vehicles to be relicensed and resold in other African countries, circulating back and forth across borders like a carnival wheel. It's possible that the pastor may have fallen victim to a criminal syndicate. But unlike the driver, our day is far from over. AfriForum members have received information about the whereabouts of a suspect allegedly involved in various robberies in the Shishlui area. The information is shared with the local police and an operation to apprehend him is put into action. Private security companies also offer their assistance.
So we're going to go check that compound, and then when we finish there we're going to check most of the compounds and stuff, maybe we find something. But that specific one we've got information. So when we get there, we'll stop before the compound, we show each one where to go.
Yeah, what can we expect? Resistance? Firearms?
I don't think there's firearms. So maybe knife or kalimbas, but we must just be safe. The captain is waiting, he will also go with, so we can do the dirty work. Which is good. He's back up.
Let's go. What type of stolen goods are we looking for exactly? Okay. So electronic stuff mostly.
Electronic stuff.
The suspect is apparently hiding out with his girlfriend in a compound outside of town.
Wayesebenza kulo nkosana wayehlala la. Lo wahamba lo wayekhani kho gandakala. Uyophi?
Makuza mkhangala kahle. Ngicela phandle.
Although the alleged girlfriend claims not to know the suspect, the smouldering fire outside her house tells a different story. So one of the crimes that the suspect was allegedly involved with was a house robbery where a certain amount of items were stolen, among others Garmin watches, which you know are very expensive watches, and someone's obviously been trying to destroy evidence. As we can see, a lot of this has been burnt a few minutes ago, so we probably just missed him, or he's still around. The suspect may have slipped away this time, but with continued efforts of Neighbourhood Watch members and reliable information networks, it will be a matter of time before he is apprehended. The lack of border control is only one element that has given rise to South Africa's shockingly high crime rate. It is clear that the current government does not have the will or the competency to solve these issues, so it is up to ordinary citizens to get involved. Join your nearest AfriForum Neighbourhood Watch at www.afriforumbuurtwag.co.za.